Kevin Feige, the big man, the boss of Marvel Studios, took to Reddit this week to do an AMA. And ooh, there's some juicy details in there. Plus, is Moon Knight back on the table? And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is back. You know I'm going to talk about it. All that and more today on Marvel Movie News.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Marvel Movie News.
Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon to you.
Our Merry Marvelites. Welcome back to Marvel Movie News, coming to you live from Reddit.
I just want to hear you say Thanos' butt.
We did that
I know
once.
we did it, but it still pops into my head every time.
I don't want to go back.
Why?
We were in Thanos' butt once,
All
and
right,
just once.
Spider Xia.
I'll take it. I like it.
Thanos' butt.
Thank you.
There. Are you happy now?
Yes!
Can we continue with the show?
Yeah.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today on Marvel Movie News. I'm Zach Wilson. That's Xia Anderson. We've got Christian Bladt over there. This is going to be a fun episode. Not a ton of news, but some really interesting news that definitely warrants some discussion. And we'll be doing some fan questions for Doom's Question Corner at the end. So please start thinking of what you want to talk about at the end of the show. As always, please be sure to like, rate, subscribe, share the videos, share the podcast with everybody that you can. If you share it and tweet at Marvel News PTN, Colt Badeau and the Star Jammer will help you out with a retweet.
Yay.
Let's dive right into it, you guys, and talk about some beautiful Marvel news. Don't worry, if you're here to hear my opinions on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because I don't have to do Doom's Minute of S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore, we're going to do that in Marvel TV time at the back of the show, where I just get to be excited.
I can see you're already excited.
I am excited. I love S.H.I.E.L.D. and it's back. So let's talk about this AMA. Did you guys get a chance to look at it?
I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing.
Yeah, I've read a story about it, but I didn't read through it.
So
I would love to have.
Yeah, it's a cool AMA. If you're not familiar with Reddit AMAs, Kevin Feige, and he had to post proof that it was him. Went onto the Marvel Studios subreddit, and basically it was just like, look, ask me whatever questions you have. I'll answer a bunch of them. So he took on there, and there's some cool stuff that came out of it. We're talking about the biggest story at the end, but some cool stuff that he said. He was asked about people that were because we've talked about it, when Hulk snapped people back. Mm-hmm. What about the people who were like on airplanes? Did they come back where they were just like in the air and then fall to their deaths? And Feige clarified, well, we call him the Smart Hulk. So
So he knew what he was doing when he snapped everyone back.
Feige basically implied that Hulk was smart enough to snap them back to a safe space. Probably knew to just throw in that fine print.
That's definitely a smart clarification to make.
On the monkey paw gauntlet.
Yeah, that tells me that if Scott Lang had somehow been in charge of the snap, you would have had people falling in the sky, in the ocean, and drowning. So I'm so glad that we had Smart Hulk in charge.
Well, honestly, if you'd had most people, when you get down to it, like even Cap, I bet, wouldn't have thought that far through. He would just be like, bring them back. And then you would have had people in buildings that don't exist anymore.
Oh my God.
Either way, some interesting results from all that. When asked about the one-shots, whether those will be coming back, because those were always fun when you got those on Blu-rays or DVDs. Yeah. He said the best thing about the one-shots is that we got to flesh out other characters. It's tremendously exciting now that we have Disney Plus series where we get to do that on a grand scale with many of the characters you know and love. So basically, and he said this in a couple different places, but the Disney Plus shows are going to somewhat take on the point of view that the one-shots were given, where it's like taking these characters that you got to spend a little bit of time with in the movies and giving them plenty of time to play and build out the world. So you will get into those little tiny little spaces that of the MCU that you don't really get to explore that often.
And instead of getting a 2-hour movie of it, you get like 6 hours of it or 7, however many episodes there's going to be. So that's exciting.
Yeah, the rumors are most of the Marvel series will be between 6 to 8 episodes.
Awesome.
I believe Scarlet Witch is going to be 6.
Perfect.
They haven't officially said any of the episode lengths, but 6 to 8 sounds about right.
Yeah. I feel like that's a perfect amount of time to tell a decent story.
He also mentioned, and I had forgotten that this was a thing because I don't think they ever posted it online, but they did a special for San Diego Comic-Con last year of Louise recapping the first 10 years of Marvel movies.
That's amazing.
And he literally closed it out with like, I'm sure it's around somewhere. ... So I would say, I hope that they expand it so that it finishes Endgame as well, and you just have Luis like doing the recap of all of the Infinity Saga. That would be a blast.
That'd be awesome.
And then throw it on the Endgame DVD.
Yeah.
Well, I'll buy it.
Yeah, buy it anyway, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll buy
That
it
would just
twice
be
this way.
exactly.
Well, that's the other thing
Buy it for
I
a
want to
friend.
know, because they've done the special like phase 1, phase 2 box sets. Like I unfortunately didn't grab them. Now they're super expensive, especially the phase 1 box set. The phase 1 came in the briefcase or a similar briefcase like they had in the Avengers where the Tesseract was being, and it had a Tesseract inside of it and came with all the movies and stuff. And then phase 2 Blu-ray box set came in an orb, came with an orb, and you like opened it and the discs were inside.
See, this is why I don't let myself buy too many things, because I would just have to have an entire other house full of things, because I want all of it.
Yeah, I mean it was like they were each like $200 or
and I
$150
can't afford
to
it.
like start with, which is not. It wasn't a bad deal to me. It's
No,
like when you're getting
but-
all of those movies, and you're getting this cool like thing for your shelf. But even now, like the phase 2 one's still $225. The phase 1 one's harder to find, so it's like $600 collector's item. But for like, so do they put out a phase 3 one
Gauntlet.
that looks like, or do you do the Infinity Saga box set for like $500 and it comes in a giant Infinity Gauntlet?
Yes.
And I have most of the movies on Blu-ray or DVD at this
Yeah.
point, but oh man, do I want that?
You'd have to get a whole other one.
Yeah.
Just have like 3 copies of all of the DVDs, and people are like, why do you have all of those?
Well, the answer would be, well, look at the packaging. I had to get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Marvel, if you're listening, please. Talking about the Hulk and Mark Ruffalo, this is a really cool quote that he put out. Many years ago, Mark came in for a reading with us at Marvel Studios to discuss our meeting. Not a reading, a meeting with us at Marvel Studios to discuss ways in which the Hulk could grow and evolve in upcoming films. He pitched a lot of cool ideas, some of which led to what you saw in Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, and Endgame, and some of which would still be cool to see someday.
Ooh.
Yeah, the cool thing there is that they're implying that like they are open to having the Hulk back,
Ooh.
which I would hope so.
He
but
hasn't had a standalone movie as Mark Ruffalo.
No, he's not.
So-
There's the. In case anyone's not aware, part of the reason that we haven't had a Hulk follow-up solo film is because the distribution rights are still with Universal.
It's
I believe.
Universal, yeah, and Disney can't
Is
buy
it Universal
everything.
or Paramount?
It's Universal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can try.
There was the Universal City Walk Theater had a giant Hulk at one point.
That's right, that's
that
right.
was the tie-in. Yeah, and that's why the name of Hulk couldn't appear in the title for Thor Ragnarok. I don't think it worked. It wouldn't have made sense. But that's the rule. You can't have a movie with Hulk in the title, but you can use him in your team up movies. I think that's the understanding they
He
have.
can appear in the movies
Yeah.
because he's not the headliner.
Yeah.
But the moment he headlines a movie, technically Universal
Well,
has distribution rights.
Universal needs to get their crap together because they're not doing anything with the character.
Well,
so
I think it's not that they can't produce a movie on their own, but if Disney wanted to put out a Hulk movie, it would have to be distributed by Universal, which means that that Universal would get a huge chunk of that money. So it's up if Disney really wants to do a Hulk movie, they would have to either give that money to Universal as they distribute it, or buy those rights back from Universal, which I'm sure would cost them hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's probably what Universal wants in the whole equation. It's like, hey, you want to buy these Hulk rights back? And they're probably like, no, we're okay right now.
And Disney's looking at what the profit would be on a Hulk movie, and like at a certain point, they're like, meh. But it doesn't prevent them from doing a Hulk TV series, and that's the big thing. So we could see, and there was that rumor with the Hulk She-Hulk Disney Plus series, which I've been very clear about my feelings and excitement about a She-Hulk series. Call me Disney. And there was a Guillermo del Toro Hulk series in development at one point, a non-MCU Hulk series that was being developed, and that would have been really cool to see, just like what Guillermo del Toro obviously would be very different from the Ruffalo take.
Very, but I just love anything he does.
Would probably be more in line with like what they're doing right now with it's Immortal Hulk right now, I believe. The current comic line, where it's more horror based and like back to the origins. Al Ewing. I've only gotten to read a couple issues, but it's really cool. And they've like 16 issues in now. Awesome stuff. More. You guys want to hear more AMA stuff?
I do, because we could have asked Feige anything, but we didn't. So somebody else did.
Found out later. As far as like, has he ever done a cameo in any of these movies? Like obviously we saw Joe Russo do a cameo in Endgame and stuff like that. He said, "I don't like being on camera, but I did cameo in a deleted scene in the first X-Men as a Weapon X technician. I was completely covered in a hood, mask, and goggles."
Oh, wow.
And then they deleted it anyway.
Yep.
I love it.
That's how good he was in the scene, that they cut it out.
They're like, actually, I know we can't see your face, but you're still terrible.
You've ruined the scene.
More stuff from Incredible Hulk that like I had just like, it didn't even occur to me, and I'd forgotten, and I bet a lot of you did too. Martin Starr, it has a brief cameo scene in Incredible Hulk.
The Ed Norton one.
Yeah, Norton one.
Right.
Which is MCU canon.
Right, I don't remember.
Long.
You remember when Bruce Banner is like trying to sneak into the building to get the data, and he brings a pizza the window, and he gives the pizza to a random technician in the building. That's Martin Starr.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's funny.
And when asked if Martin Starr, when he's there, is the same person as the character in Spider-Man Homecoming, like chaperoning for Peter and everything, he just responded, "I do." So it's like super random, and like, why not?
Yeah.
Guy was
exactly.
working as a lab tech, like at a college. Now he's teaching at a high school. Totally fits.
Yep.
Same guy. It's all connected.
See, we figured it out, Marvel, for you.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites. Who is Noob Master 69? To which Feige responds, "Aren't we all a little Noob Master 69?"
Yeah.
That's great.
This made me like. I already liked Feige, but this made me enjoy Feige even more so. Another one like that. Why is Gamora? Because. And that's it. All right. So that's all the fun stuff. But there was one story, and I feel like Kevin Feige went into this AMA like, I'm gonna give them one scoop from this whole thing. Like, you can't do an AMA and like not answer questions like about the future at least a little bit. So I think he went in knowing he's gonna drop one thing on people to blow up the internet, and he did. And that's the thing that this episode is titled after, because it's a big one. Well, it's a big one for nerds.
Yeah.
So when he was asked, without going into details about developing projects, are there any plans to incorporate the 10 rings from the first Iron Man or the real quote unquote real Mandarin teased in All Hail the King in the future? To which he said, simply, yes. And the internet nerd media blew up. So if you don't remember All Hail the King, it was the one shot that came on the Thor the Dark World Blu-ray. Was it Thor the Dark World? I can't remember now, but I have seen it recently. It's on one of those. And that is where we follow Trevor Slattery as he goes to jail. And he is being interviewed, and there's an agent who sneaks in as a reporter, and he turns out to be a secret person working for the Ten Rings, who apparently didn't like that Trevor was using his boss's name. I.e., Marvel, the MCU set up that there is a real Mandarin out there that is not Trevor Slattery, as much as we love that character.
Good call.
And by the way, that was on the Thor: The Dark World DVD. I just looked it up.
Memory.
So look at you.
Nice.
So the Ten Rings, which was a little thread between some of the Iron Man movies early on, and now the Mandarin, which obviously closed out in the Iron Man 3 storyline, could be coming back. Or is coming back.
I mean,
It sounds like
it sounds like they have something in the works somewhere.
What he technically said yes to is there are plans to incorporate the Ten Rings in the future. What are your guys' first reactions? And chat, get in on this too. What are you guys thinking as you hear this?
I mean, mostly I just think it's exciting because it's a redemption for a character that everybody was really pissed about when it first happened. So I
don't know why everyone was pissed. I love the misdirect.
Did you?
I love the misdirect, the idea that you set up this big bad with a scary name in this world. Because again, the MCU is closer to our reality than the comic book reality, where it is kind of silly for people to have code names. We're using our fake names here. Well, I'm Spider-Man.
Right.
That stuff. It's sort of silly. There's no secret. There's very little secret identities. So it's just dropping nicknames for people. So the idea of subverting that by creating a character, creating a persona around this organization while staying in the shadows seemed like a really cool way to do it.
It still would have been nice to get an actual Chinese Mandarin, or at least half Chinese, because he's half Chinese.
Well, I mean, he's been Gandhi, so obviously he's of Indian descent, even though he's a British guy.
Not
but
Chinese.
I think if you're going to do a misdirect, I didn't like that they burned the character of Mandarin. Why don't you do a misdirect with Paste Pot Pete or somebody that we'll be okay with?
I just was reading a Paste Pot Pete storyline in a comic book the other day.
What are the odds of that? I would love to see, because just the Mandarin's such a great character, and he's just responsible for so much mayhem in the Marvel universe. I mean, in the Acts of Vengeance series that they did in the early 90s, he's the reason that Psylocke went from being a British woman to being Asian. So, there's all sorts of great things there's great stories you can tell with him. So I like that, even if it's not going to be him directly, but something that incorporates some of what the Mandarin's all about.
That's fair. For me, I was purely talking about it on a character perspective, not about racial identity and all that.
Let me just throw this in, by the way.
The fact that,
In the chat, Langley Neely says, I would love for them to use Mandarin as Shang-Chi's father. I just like that from nowhere, but I love that idea.
Yeah.
So this is the next question that I had for you guys is, where do you think this is going to be used?
Well, I mean, I know that he's a big nemesis for Iron Man. Are we gonna get more Iron Man? I don't know.
I think we'll get somebody in a suit. I don't know if because they've said that they don't want to necessarily do a War Machine movie. I think we might see Rhodey. I think people will be using the suit. I just don't know if you're going to get a standalone Iron Man movie. I think that somebody will be using the tech in Avengers movies of some sort.
Yeah, I'm sure War Machine will pop up. I'd be if I was going to bet on anything, I'd say Captain Marvel would be his next appearance. Yeah. Not because I think they're going to do a romance storyline between them, although I know a lot of people are calling for it, but because their military dynamic is a perfect opportunity to bring those characters together. That's why they get along. Mm-hmm. They're both military people. They both are coded that way.
Right.
So I think, assuming she's on Earth for any period of time, having Rhodey in that movie makes sense. I think in maybe 10 years, I could see us doing a Riri Williams storyline, but honestly not before that. I think you want to give Iron Man a big break.
Agreed, actually.
At minimum 5 years before you do an Ironheart or Iron Woman, or who, if you change her name, whatever you want to call her. Riri, I think is a ways off. That said, so Shang-Chi is a good option.
Yeah.
I like the idea of him as his father. It also, keep in mind, this does not necessarily say that they are definitely doing the Mandarin. He said yes to 10 Rings or Mandarin. So it could just be the 10 Rings. So you could have somebody else running the 10 Rings, and that could be Shang-Chi's father. That could be it's a great place to
would be
bring it in.
interesting, yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. My first thought was as the organization that is going to be the foil for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or Captain America and the Winter Soldier, depending on what they actually end up calling that show. But like a politically driven organization for two very political characters to drop into seems to be a good fit as well. Because if you have Captain America and the Winter Soldier tackling things like in the Middle East and into Asia, the 10 Rings mainly operating in the Middle East, and then like wherever you want to stick the Mandarin. So 10 Rings as an organization seems like a great fit for that, whether you bring the Mandarin or not. Anything else that you guys think?
I would. You can pretty quickly rule out. Like, I don't see that being like Doctor Strange 2. You know, I think
No, it doesn't.
I think, and I don't feel like that would be a Black Panther 2. I think that character coming up against, Wakanda would certainly work. But I think it's some movie that we don't realize we're getting just yet. It's, I mean, at some point there will be another team movie, another Avengers style movie, but I don't quite know how far off that is. And I feel like that is sort of, it's not like having Thanos, but it is a bigger villain that you would want to, or organization really, and you want to kind of get a bunch of people together, I think, to combat it.
Well, that's going to be the interesting thing for the MCU going forward, because look, you're never going to top the universe bringing together thing that we just did in Endgame, and if you did, it would be another 10 years away.
Yeah,
at least
to do it properly,
but also just. You can't really do it the same way again. Like it's that crazy crossover has been done, and the only way to do it again and do another team up movie that would be better on the same level is to go smaller. You've gone universe destroying. You literally destroyed half the universe and then threatened to destroy the rest of it with Thanos, and you stopped him. You can't go bigger. There's no bigger. I guess unless you're doing Destroy the Multiverse, at which point we're doing Secret Wars. So,
Not that I would hate seeing that or anything.
So the only thing bigger is Secret Wars.
I'm down for that.
The only thing left. But before that, you basically have to do these little team up movies. So I want it Young Avengers or you do Secret Avengers, although we sort of did that with what Cap and Black Widow and them. But the 10 Rings, that kind of secret political organization, could be a good foil for team up movies. Mm-hmm. I hope that they could do stuff like what they're doing with Falcon and Winter Soldier, where they're doing these 2-in-1 team ups kind of things, and you could do that on a big screen. You could do Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel deserves her own standalone sequel, but you could do Captain Marvel and War Machine, and they do a political investigation, which is the perfect thing to do for Captain Marvel because she's so OP at this point. Giving her a secretive terrorist organization to fight where it's not about brute force but about playing it smart is the perfect thing to have to deal with after she fought Thanos. So I would love to see that, and I think the 10 Rings as hey, we still remember the beginning of our whole journey here. It's still relevant. It's not washed away. We're not starting over. Would be a great way to kick off the next phase of the MCU.
I wanted to throw in something from the chat. Charles Lee says, I wanted Madame Gao to be the great-great-grandmother or something of that nature of the real Mandarin, connect Daredevil and Iron Fist with Iron Man just sort of out of the blue. I like when people think big picture like that, so that's why I wanted to give that comment a shout-out.
I love those thoughts. It'll never happen.
Also agreed, but I thought it would be amazing.
Great, yeah.
I mean, look, this is the other thing is as we get... and this is actually teasing into our next story about the more adult shows in the MCU and expanding those as Disney brings everything back into the fold, and how is that all going to play together? It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting how because now you have Marvel Studios producing TV shows that are so directly tied into the MCU, like the Loki storyline, almost definitely playing with the Loki that we found in Endgame.
Yeah.
So it's going to be completely tied into the movies. Captain America, I keep calling it Captain America and the Winter Soldier, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier, until it's called something else, I'll have to call it that. But Falcon and the Winter Soldier will build off of them coming back, and from that moment in Endgame. Scarlet Witch will build off of what happened in Infinity War. Like, all of these things are going to, like, completely start there, and if they ever bring those characters back in, they will be affected by whatever they do on their shows. Marvel Studios has the ability to do that. So 10 Rings as somewhere in the MCU is going to do it. We'll see. But unfortunately, I don't think Madame Gao is going to fit into that picture.
No, but Shang-Chi could, and I think that that'd be really fun.
Yeah, because I think having, obviously Shang-Chi could be a total standalone movie if they want it to be, without any real ties to the Marvel Universe. But I think it's way more fun, even if it's maybe in his first movie. Maybe you only have a little bit, but I think there should be some presence of something. So yeah, maybe even having 10 Rings kind of just sort of looming over it. It's not even dealt with in that movie. I think that would be a great play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it could, so there's a lot of options for the 10 Rings, whether it's Falcon and Winter Soldier, whether it's Shang-Chi, or another project that we haven't even thought of here. So
somebody in the chat, I lost who it was, threw out Eternals. So who knows, so...
That feels a little small for
the Eternals.
Yeah. Eternals is like still dealing with some of that cosmic level stuff, like a celestial that's like buried under the earth or whatever. I don't think they're as concerned with a terrorist organization.
Right. They're not even aware of that stuff happening. That's just for the smaller heroes, I guess, to deal with.
But you could also subvert our expectations and throw the 10 Rings into, and then like mop them up. Like, oh no, the 10 Rings are back. Oh, they're dealt with.
That would be fun.
But like Marvel could do that, and it would be an interesting way to like show a power set of the Eternals, like that they can just, this organization that's been around forever, they're just like done. Well, maybe not snapping their fingers, but
yeah, no more snaps in these movies. I'm still a little jumpy when people snap.
Yeah, no one is ever allowed to snap on a Marvel movie again.
No, everybody's like. Oh, just kidding.
Do you think on Earth, like a snap? This is an interesting Endgame thing. In the world of the MCU, is a snap now like equivalent to giving someone the middle finger?
Oh my God, yeah. It's like the thing that he who must not be named, the thing that we do not do.
Right.
It totally is. Like, if you do this, if you do the like snap, like the three snap somebody, that is like, you're just like, whoa, go to the office, Timmy.
Oh my God.
You don't do that here.
That's actually rude now. I've had people snap at me at work before, and
Whoa.
I'm like, oh, hell
And now they're trying.
no.
They're saying they don't want you to exist. They're saying, I want to snap you out of existence, Xia.
Bye.
Oh.
And I'm like, fine, I'm not bringing you your bread.
So while we're talking Endgame, there were a few other Endgame like things that came out this week. I don't really have this in the rundown, but like some fun facts that like
I like fun facts.
well, it's like the writers and directors keep talking about like all of the different stuff that came out. So like they clarified that like good luck from between Rhodey and Carol Danvers, not romantic at all. Yeah. They're like, oh, if people read into that, sure, fanfic, whatever you want. That wasn't the intention.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
honestly,
I kind of saw the opposite.
I didn't either, but like a lot of people did, and we talked about it. So.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, that does happen in a lot of like romance things. It always starts out when they hate each other, and then there's all this chemistry there. But I didn't get that sort of vibe
I did not feel that.
So.
Yeah.
They also debunked the Namor Easter egg.
No Namor.
Well, they said that was not their intention. That said, that doesn't mean that a writer. One of the things that the Russos were talking about is that they sort of had the freedom to not worry about what came next for the first time.
That's a great
Like, they don't
point.
have to think about, like, the next movies. They're just like, we just did the good stuff, and then, like, people can figure it out from there. So you could retrofit that earthquake moment to be Namor down the road, but it wasn't written for that. Same, and so, like, they were talking about that in conjunction specifically with Hulk and the damage to his arm, and they said that is permanent damage. Like how the Hulk's arm is now smaller and like withered, that's permanent. Like they could theoretically come up with a way to fix it. They're like, he's a smart guy. They know a lot of smart people in the world. But as far as like if he didn't do anything to it, like outside treatments, it would not heal on its own.
Wow.
I mean, much the way it makes sense. Like if you look at Thanos,
In the early part of the film, after he destroyed the
yeah.
stones. Yeah.
Like when he was wrecked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and then he lost his head, and then he was really wrecked.
And so
come back from
okay,
that.
so yeah, and then going into our next story, continuing. So like, Steve McFeely and Christopher Marcus, the writers for Endgame, we're talking about like what else they would want to do, and this is one of those fun like, oh, you can't just drop this on us, you guys. Somewhere, this is McFeely. Somewhere there's a great Moon Knight movie,
Agreed.
but it's complicated.
I don't know why it would be so complicated.
So I think because it's a tough sell, and how do you exactly approach somebody with mental illness?
Well, yeah, there's that part of it. Yeah. But
Well, they did a great job of it in Legion.
that's true.
So
yeah.
it's not like it can't be done. Like Legion did that very well.
Yeah.
So I think that you could do that in a movie form or even a show form. If they doesn't necessarily have to be a movie. It could also be a series on Hulu or Disney Plus.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going back a couple years, there were rumblings that they wanted to do something with Moon Knight, and whether it's a movie or series or anything, I think it's a character that there's a lot you can do with, and I think he's somebody that most people just don't know anything about, and I think once you really dive in, he's fascinating.
I think Marvel may have been taking meetings, like pitch meetings for Moon Knight. Like, hey, somebody pitch us a good version of it, and we'll can keep it on for like after the Punisher or whatever. And then obviously all of the Netflix deals started to fall through. We probably was happening before any of us were aware of it. But I do know that like there were people like talking about Moon Knight in the background, and not just like fans speculating. So Moon Knight, I mean, like, it could be really cool. I would love to see McFeely and Marcus tackle something that wasn't as grand scale as Endgame or Civil War. Like, what would they do with a small scale thing? Like, you could do Moon Knight. Moon Knight fits if you're going to keep doing these darker Hulu shows like Ghost Rider and Hellstrom. But these guys are feature writers, and they're talking about it as a movie. Moon Knight could work as a movie. It might work better as a Hulu show, so that you could get dark with it and like just go nuts.
I don't necessarily hate the idea of having people who've worked on movies work on a show.
No, it happens more and more than you would think.
And I enjoy that it sort of gives it a fresh... I love shows that are really cinematic. It's always my favorite when they do that. So if they can bring, that aspect to Moon Knight, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. This is just a quick story. I thought it was cool. Like, there are people. There's a change.org petition to get Stan Lee a memorial statue in New York.
That'd be cute.
It's on. If you just search for like Stan Lee memorial petition, you'll find it. It has over 100,000 signatures so far as of this morning.
Do they have somewhere they want to put it? Is it near like one of the former locations of Marvel, like 575 Madison Avenue, right out there out front? Or
That could be really cool.
Would be
I
awesome.
doubt they're gonna put it there.
not a well, and then the later location on Park Avenue South. I'm just going to say they're definitely not going to put it there.
I don't know that they have a site in mind, but I would love to see it in Central Park.
That would be great. Yeah.
Like they have the Balto statue out there and all that. Like, can you imagine you're walking? There's like all these war generals and artists from like the 1800s, and then Stan the Man.
I'd love it.
Got
I'd
a
love
little
it.
Spidey pin and like a Captain America shield.
I've
or
got the
something.
location. Just thinking about it now. So in the Sheep's Meadow, in the original Secret Wars, 1985 Secret Wars, everyone is drawn to something. They don't know what it is, and they all get sucked into the battle world from the Beyonder. It's in the Sheep Meadow. Everybody ends up in Central Park, and then they disappear. So that's where I want Stan's statue to be, and I'm going to sign that petition right now. Well, not right now. After the show.
Yes. Hell yes. I would love if there was some deep comic book lore that we attached to this statue. Oh my god. I just threw out Central Park because there's all those statues that you go on a tour of.
And then one of them being
like,
Stan. Sorry.
No, I think you're not sorry. No, I think that'd be awesome because he's shaped so many people's lives, honestly, and some people I've heard want to make fun of the fact that adults get so into these fantasy worlds, but it's like, why not? The real world's not that great sometimes.
There's so many things that you can say it's great about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's a long list, but I think you could put right at the top, people know who Stan Lee is, who I don't think would have otherwise. He got so much credit. Yes, some would say too much credit, but he deserves a lot of credit, and people knew who he was, and I think that's a great part of his legacy.
Look, Stan Lee wouldn't be Stan Lee without all the artists and
Yeah,
writers that
absolutely.
he worked alongside, but you can't discredit the fact that it was Stan Lee as the consistent focal point, like
Yeah.
that kept it going for years and years at like between all of those different artists whose contributions were unparalleled to getting it going, but Stan was the center point that kept it all focused and going forward. So, I would love to see Steve Ditko get a statue too.
Yeah.
So, like that would be cool too. But Stan as like the face of it all and like the for lack of a better term, like the leader of it during that time as the editor in chief for so many years is the one who there's a reason he's been built up.
Steve Ditko can get a statue in Forest Hills where Peter Parker grew up, and you can put Jack Kirby by wherever the Baxter building was. I forget what the address was. So see, you can put them all over the city. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like little Easter eggs for everyone.
Little Marvel statues
Yeah.
everywhere. All right.
I like it.
So I think with that, we're going to go ahead and get into Marvel TV time.
Marvel movie news. We're talking TV time.
Okay. Real quick story. Runaways Season 3 has started filming. That's it.
How long before we get that?
It'll probably be
a while.
It'll be. I think it usually comes around the same time. It'll be early next year, if I have to guess.
Okay, so I haven't about another year of freedom.
If they're filming in May, that could come as early as the fall, like with a
That's
May
true.
shoot start.
But I think season 2 was at the beginning of this year, so maybe the end of this year, early next year.
I
But
mean, that's with streaming platforms. There's
Yeah.
no hard set rules as to
true.
when you put it out, just when you feel like it. And when are all the other Marvel shows? Like Hulu's gonna have a ton of Marvel content over the next few years.
yeah, I wonder
How
when
are
we
we
get the
gonna watch it
first
all?
of any of those animated shows.
Yeah,
I mean,
there are
that's-
6 Marvel shows in development for Hulu. In development, 4 animated, Ghost Rider and Hellstrom live action.
Also, but What If is for Disney Plus.
Disney
or-
Plus,
yeah,
yes.
so I stopped myself before I said something foolish.
I was just talking. That's just for Hulu,
Yeah,
you guys. That
that's-
doesn't even keep it. That doesn't even count Cloak and Dagger on Freeform or all of the things on Disney Plus. Speaking of Cloak and Dagger, I finally sat down and caught up over the weekend.
Amazing.
I'm enjoying this show. It's not my favorite of all of them, but I think it's fun, and what I love is that it's unique amongst the Marvel shows. It is very specific. It's very standalone. It's very political in ways that you don't get on a lot of these shows.
Well, I love the fact that they don't just film it in New Orleans and pretend it's somewhere else. They actually, incorporate the city and the values and just some of the different personalities. I think is great.
Oh, I love that voodoo magic
Yeah.
has become part of it, and light spoilers for this season, but I love the record store.
To
Netherworld.
to figure out a way to do, going through the cloak and into that sort of netherworld and just getting this character who is, it's the TV version of Despair, and just actually being able to project all of it. It seemed like it might be a little too high concept for Freeform, so I was impressed with the way they pulled it off.
I just love that I love the idea of when you manifest something as simple as toying, psychically toying with somebody's mind.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? Because that shouldn't have a visual. It doesn't make sense for it to have a visual. But we're visual creatures. How do you portray that on a visual medium, especially? And that to me was super cool. A super inventive way to use that. Anyway.
Yeah,
Xia.
no, I've talked about this at length on Marvel TV Weekly over on the on AfterBuzz TV with Christian and I Sundays at 9.
Thank you.
I've talked about of course. I've talked about it at length there. How everyone I guess that watches that kind of knows that I don't really like Cloak and Dagger. It's not.
And you mostly don't like Dagger.
I mostly don't like Dagger.
You're okay with Ty. You're
Yeah,
all right with him.
Ty's cool.
Yeah.
He's a sweetie, but he is. He's just so sweet in the show. I'm just like, oh, but I don't really like it. But this last episode, it really has, just for me personally, grown leaps and bounds. I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed this episode. I like what you were saying. The record store. I like the voodoo that they used. The entire episode in general was very interesting to me. Like a lot of the times I find myself zoning out during the show or going to do something else because I'm just like, ugh, I don't care. But they've gotten to a point where I cared, and I was finding myself so laser focused on the episode that I think I was watching it on my tablet. My mouth was slightly open, and I was like, And I realized halfway through the episode, I was like, oh, I like this. So if it continues going this way, I'll enjoy it more.
Yeah.
I did not like the first season.
But that was a surprising thing that you actually texted me. I can't believe it. I like this episode.
I
But I
know.
like that, and I like the way that they're doing the Mayhem character, where they've
Love
split
it.
her into two. And I don't know just how important she is, even when she's just lurking around in the record store. I thought
I
that
loved her lurking
they
around
did
in the
her
record
great.
store.
All right. I'm a skibbity bop over this because I'm talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I want to get some fan questions at the end of the show. So I want to make sure there's time for that. S.H.I.E.L.D's back, you guys. It's been so long. It's been so long, and this is my only outlet to talk about it now because life is crazy. But luckily, I have this outlet. Nobody can stop me now.
I don't know if I've ever seen you this excited, Zach. This
It's
is
also
amazing.
true.
Well, look, I've talked about S.H.I.E.L.D. for a number of years. I didn't announce it on the show last week. I meant to. I talked about it on Twitter, but just because of schedules and timing, I had to step down from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. AfterBuzz TV show. I can make this work because it's during the week. The weekends get a little bit hairier with my timing. But I get to talk about it here with you guys, with my friends. And that's one of my favorite things, talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with friends. Even if you're not as big a nerd of it for it as me, I'm excited to talk
This was
about it.
my first episode of watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ever.
I don't know how to take that.
I thought you might enjoy that little piece of information.
So my thoughts on this episode, and so if you guys are in another market, you're not in, and this is why I wanted to make sure it was at the back of the show.
That's a good point. Yeah.
This is going to be a little bit spoilery if it hasn't aired in your territory yet. I'm sorry. If you're watching on YouTube, hey Jill, could we get them red spoiler lights on in the background so we can warn everybody? Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
So we're going to talk about so when the lights go back to blue. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the perfect time. That's the way to know when to turn your volume back up. I liked this episode. It was fun. There were parts of it I'm sort of torn on pieces of it. The space stuff, much like I wasn't as big a fan of last season. I'm not the space stuff is fine. It looks really cool, but that's not why I'm watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I like the stuff that's more on the ground and personal. That's why I've always liked Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is because it gets into that nitty gritty personal stuff in the MCU. I like Mac's world that he's building here, that he's struggling with. There's so many new S.H.I.E.L.D. interns.
There's a lot of them.
Did one of them die already? Was he a new?
Was
a new
the
character?
guy's name was Fox. I believe he is not with us.
The blonde
guy.
kid?
I think
Yeah.
he dies from.
I don't
I
think
believe
he-
he's a butterfly now.
I don't think he died.
I
Did
thought.
he
I thought
Well,
he
he's,
did.
he's definitely very
shot
hurt
him.
if he's not dead. But I think he might be dead.
Oh, poor red
Because
shirt.
I was gonna say, I felt I'm like, oh, okay, so that's the red shirt, which is obviously a Star Trek reference. But
Yeah.
that's the funny thing is, I always do enjoy the characters on Shield, but I loved the space part of last season, especially as people who watch Marvel TV Weekly know, I very strongly disliked the end of season 4, and so to go off into space, they definitely won me back, and I was glad to see it. I like everybody being together though, so I don't want them to be separated for too long. But I do love Simmons' take charge attitude in the way of, I'm smarter than all of you. I'm gonna do whatever the F I want. So
I did like that
Nobody's
too.
nobody's going home for a nap.
I didn't know who she. I don't even know who she was, but I was like, oh, nice.
You're like, I like her.
Yeah.
I want to know where Deke is at.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Deke's one of my new favorite characters on this show, but and I'm I don't know how to feel about this new thing with Keller. But that's what I'm saying. There's a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. interns, which is that's what we always called the random S.H.I.E.L.D. people in the background.
Got it.
They're all interns. If you
I
don't
like
have
it.
a name, you're an intern.
I like it.
So Piper wouldn't be an intern because we have her name. And
Piper's been around for a long
she's
time.
been around for a
Keller
while.
to me is still an intern.
Okay.
He's just an intern who's hooking up way up the ladder.
Yeah, that's true. He's way above his pay grade with Yo-Yo.
And I don't know how I feel about Momomo getting broken up, which is what I call Mac and Yo-Yo.
Oh, okay.
Might not stay broken up. It's just a hunch I have.
Yeah, Keller seems destined. But as far as the who is Clark Gregg playing, I have no idea. But they did seem to in the preview for next week sort of hint that there might be a connection to Colt. I mean, there would have to be. Otherwise, why?
I mean, why does he look exactly
But
like
he was
him? Yeah.
they were what's that word mean? Coulson. I don't
Yeah.
know, but it sounds familiar. And so it's okay, so this is some mind warp thing. I don't know what dimensional thing these guys came from, but I like the idea that they're like they have to like clear space to teleport through. There's something interesting here. There's like I almost wonder if they what if they're like necro walking, like they are inhabiting dead bodies. What if all of these people are dead?
That would work.
And they
like that
took,
idea.
and it's not that they raised the dead. They just took use of discarded bodies.
I read a book that's like that, and I love that concept.
Yeah, so like that could be a really cool way for them to take it, where it like Coulson died, he was buried, and then they were like, well, this is fresh.
Yeah.
Walked into it. It's not being used. It's that debate of a lot of sci-fi stuff has tackled that idea of like if there like there's a Doctor Who episode about it where it's like if this flesh isn't being used and these people could use it, why are you offended? Like, it's just flesh that used to belong to somebody you know.
Right.
Let them have it. So that could be a really interesting way to do it.
Well,
I don't know if that's right, but it could be interesting.
My theory that I'm filling in on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show for a couple of weeks. It's Sundays at 8 Pacific on the AfterBuzz TV, which is right before Z and I do Marvel TV Weekly. And my theory is that he's a Skrull and doesn't know it. He just has no idea. So he doesn't know why he looks like this guy. It's actually not what he looks like, but he just doesn't know. So that I just wanted to have my own theory out there on the record on this show. And when it's proven wrong, everybody will be like, dummy.
That's
they're
the
gonna say
fun,
that
though.
anyway.
That's the fun of this show is that the bonkers theories. Look. My Shield bonkers theories go all the way back to season 1 when they revealed the random Kree, and I went, "What if that's Marvel?"
That's a great theory.
And like Coulson, Lawson, it's all there. And then of course that is way off base, but 5 or 6 years ago seemed plausible.
In your head, it made perfect sense.
It did make sense.
I wanted to ask Xia the same question I asked on Sunday night. So watching the show for the first time, did you feel like you were totally lost or maybe just a little bit, or was it?
I mean, a little bit because I didn't know any of the characters. I guess I knew enough about it just from hearing you guys talk about it and from reading things that I knew sort of where we were leaving off from, and they kind of did a quick recap. So I definitely wasn't. I mean, I'm lost, but I'm not. It's not bothering me that much. Eventually, I'll go back and maybe watch some seasons. I want to see the Ghost Rider season.
You gotta
Yes, you do.
see. That's
I've
like
just
one of my
heard too many good
favorite
things.
arcs
Yeah.
is when they brought in Robbie Ray. It's like from season 1, episode 20, when they did the Winter Soldier tie-in through season 2 is like I think the strongest that the show ever was. Season 3 is good, but the Ghost Rider arc is one of the like most interesting times that they've done on the show.
Yeah, so I think I'll go back and check those out. The show, and I think I said this also on Marvel TV Weekly, the show reminds me a little bit of, and someone said it in the chat too, I was saying like Flash and Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow. It does have, it's a similar vibe to that, and I do really like those shows. So I don't see myself hating this. I definitely am not going and being like, oh, I have to watch this show like I have with some other shows. But it was one of those shows that I didn't watch, A, because it's network, and B, because it didn't look good. I didn't think I was going to like it. So this is a pleasant surprise.
Get into it, Xia. All right, let's turn down that spoiler warning. You guys can all come back and be safe among friends. And let's do some questions from the chat and from Doom's Question Corner. If you guys want to send your questions in to the podcast so that we can talk about them, you can email them to doomsquestioncorner@gmail.com. It's real easy. doomsquestioncorner@gmail.com.
Very easy.
So I wanted to start with one that was sent in via Twitter by Charles Lee. And I thought this was a good one to start with. Is Agent Carter still canon? Didn't it end with her settling down with Sousa? What's going on? It's all wibbly wobbly after Endgame. There's a two-part. There's like two kinds of questions that going on here. So as far as did it end with her settling down with Sousa? No. They sort of implied that it could be Sousa, who could be like the father of her children that she refers to in Winter Soldier, but that was never a thing on the show. It might have been in season 3, but they never got that far. So as far as like what's the story that has been told, we never found out who she wound up with. And as far as is it still canon? Yes. as canon as any of the MCU TV shows have ever been. That hasn't changed.
Yeah, and I'd say arguably it's more canon once we saw Edwin Jarvis in Endgame. That like, made it like, okay, it's definitely canon.
Yeah, at the very minimum, that Jarvis is the Jarvis in both universes.
Right.
As far as like, it is wibbly wobbly, it's even more so because you had the Russos say their version of time travel where Cap is in a different timeline living out his life, and then you had the writers come out and say, no, Cap lived his life in this timeline, and it's in our universe. It's not a different one. And then Kevin Feige in the AMA would ask, like, can you explain which one is canon? Like, is it this choice or this choice? And he just said, yes.
Great answer. Thank you.
So the answer is, look, it's up in the air, and I doubt they'll ever explain it more than they have, like, to this point. So have fun with your headcanon. Like, I like the idea that he lived it in our universe. It totally works for me. Like, it's a little breaky in terms of some of the time travel stuff, but who cares? Let it be fun. Let it be that, like, I still like giggly Captain America and Peggy Carter, like, talking about how Captain America saved me all those years ago in Germany.
Just don't think about it too much. Just stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Just enjoy.
Christian, any other questions from the chat?
Well, I just lost who asked it, but somebody wanted to know, Zach, if you want Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to be a supervillain of the week show, do you think that would help it?
No. Not straight up like episodic where they're just going off and doing this and then like doing the next one, but having those episodes thrown in every now and again is sort of, I think, the joy of the show. So you know what it is? It's doing that a couple times, like doing that and then like doing like a little bit of an arc story and then doing another one, and then it turns out that like all of those people were working for Hydra or AIM at the end of the season, and it was all connected the entire time. So when you go back and rewatch, you're like, oh, I see how that led into this and this and that, and that. Like, that's the best way to do a longer form TV show. I think,
are my favorite seasons of Doctor Who when they do that.
Yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has done some great stuff where it's just pure, like, serialized storytelling, like Ghost Rider, where it's like pieces through it, and then they go off and they do some like stuff that like ties in loosely, like because they're like investigating magic all of a sudden. That stuff is fun. So I don't want them to go pure monster of the week, but that doesn't mean you can't do those episodes. All right. We're unfortunately out of time for today, but please send us more questions for next week so that we can get into it. Especially, I expect there's going to be lots of time for fan questions and investigating weird little like ideas about the MCU between now and July when Feige and team take the stage for San Diego Comic-Con and announce all the things. There's probably, other than Spider-Man and Dark Phoenix, where other than two major movies we're dying for, what is there to talk about? I like heard it myself as I was talking. Please send us your questions. Lots more to talk about.
And people are asking for the address for Doom's Question Corner again.
All right, one more time. The email address is doomsquestioncorner@gmail.com. All you got to do is remember it, and then remember that most people have Gmail addresses these days.
That's true.
All right, so we're going to wrap up right now. Xia, where can everyone find you?
Besides, on Sunday nights at 9 over on Marvel TV Weekly at AfterBuzz TV, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Xia_land. That's XIA_land.
And you can find me just as easily as Sundays at 9 on Marvel TV Weekly. And as I mentioned, this week I'll be sitting in one more time on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. After Show, which is at 8 Pacific on AfterBuzz TV. And tonight, 10 p.m., Twilight Zone, AfterBuzz TV. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ.
All right, guys. I'm Zach Wilson. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @ThatZachWilson. Also, be sure to check out my other podcast, Ships in the Night, where we do weird cross-fandom shipping stuff. We also do, in that part of the show, is we do a matchmaker segment where we have to find love for someone that people bring in. Lex Michael, who you may know from AfterBuzz TV, brought in The Collector this week.
Oh.
And I'll just tease you with that. It's, let's just say... there's a Zoolander reference going on in that one. Yep. All right, guys, so check that out. That's called Ships in the Night. I'm Zach Wilson. This has been Marvel Movie News. Thanks for geeking out with us.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.